What up? So this topic of discussion, we're going to talk about Kevin Durant and his legacy based on another super team. We're always going to point down to the root, and this is going to lead to the conversation basically concluding to the all-time rankings for Kevin Durant and his little tenure with the Golden State Warriors winning championship. And it looks like the Brooklyn Nets may win at least one, but multiple championships with this quote-unquote super team of KD, Harden, Kyrie, and then if they can keep any of these vets for the years to come, so on and so forth. With my all-time rankings, I do have Kevin Durant around top 20, top 25 all-time, somewhere in that mix. Some people have Kevin Durant around top 15, maybe even squeaking 11, 12. No, that's not the case. And this is nothing to be petty upon, but with Kevin Durant joining the Golden State Warriors, winning those championships, didn't mean much to nothing for me, let alone for the whole NBA landscape. Even for Kevin Durant, because for him, he still has burners out there. It's been years after years trying to justify himself. And he understands that's why he left Golden State. He had to leave to join a new franchise to win himself because the Warriors were all-time favorites, let alone, even though they did lose in those NBA finals, which, I mean, after looking at the body language and such, it looked like an inside job. I'm going to leave it at that. You guys can watch game 5, 6, and 7. Kyrie and LeBron did ball out, but if you look at the demeanor for the Warriors, they dropped from 100% to like 55 and seem on purpose, especially for Steph Curry. But I'm not going to get too much in those theatrics. But the Golden State Warriors, even though they did lose to the Cavaliers in those finals, the Warriors were still overwhelming favorites to knock out the Cavs the next two seasons. LeBron James squeaked out that championship due to miracles. Again, he had his all-time performances the last three games, but for everything to go right with the Draymond Green suspension, going to the Warriors dropping down, it seemed like they didn't even care anymore. They're just going through the process and just the flow. It led to the position to where LeBron squeaked out that championship. I knew whenever LeBron won that championship, he was never going to win another one ever again with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And they should have traded away Kevin Love after those finals, but little to none, they kept him. But those Cleveland Cavaliers, they still had a great team, but the Warriors were always that main super juggernaut. Not in a super team type of way, but due to Steph Curry's excellence of being one of the greatest players of all time. And Steph Curry was the greatest player in the world during the 2016 season. Now, LeBron took back the throne and the crown after beating him in the finals, but I don't want to get too much into that. But basically what I'm saying is the Warriors were overwhelming favorites to take down the Cleveland Cavaliers in the next NBA Finals because there's going to be no more gimmicks. There's going to be no more tactics for the Cavaliers to favor off of. And those Warriors they most likely would have not, maybe, I'm not going to say swept, but they would have beaten them still in 5 games. Now, since the Warriors were overwhelming favorites, that left Kevin Durant in a particular situation. It was always Steph Curry and LeBron as the greatest players in the world for those last 2 seasons. And before, back in the Miami days, in the Thunder, it was always either LeBron at 1 and KD at 2 for the past 3 to 4 seasons. Now with Steph Curry and LeBron, it was either Steph 1, LeBron 1, or Steph 2, LeBron 2. And Kevin Durant was not getting enough media coverage. He was kind of dipping. So he knew he would never beat the Cavaliers if he faced off in the finals against LeBron. And he was never going to get in a position to where he could potentially beat those Warriors. After the Warriors took them out in 2016 in the conference finals, coming back from 3-1, that was the Thunder's only chance. Now, if they were to face off the next year or two with the Warriors, they would have got clamped. The Warriors had them on edge. So that left Kevin Durant's situation. His peak already ended with the Thunder. He had to win a championship and leave the franchise. How was he going to do that? Now, the main teams were the Boston Celtics out there. Some were throwing out the San Antonio Spurs, all that jazz. The main two in his consideration was pretty much the Warriors or the Celtics. Now, if he won with the Celtics, he would have been an all-time great. We all understand that, but he was still not going to get past the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference, let alone if he were to meet the Warriors in the finals, they were not going to get it done with. Now, he knew if he joined the Warriors, it was a double win, but there was a big L on there. So the 2 wins was he would easily make it to the finals, win championships. They knew they would defer to Kevin Durant, even though Steph Curry was the better player in the world, but they would defer to him being a star player to make him happy and for them to dominate. He would most likely win finals MVPs, which turned out to be the case, and he would defeat LeBron James in the finals, which he can finally get that over him. Now, the only L was he knew he would be pretty much crucified by joining the Warriors, who won 73 games, the greatest team pretty much in this decade, one of the greatest teams of all time. And he joined a back-to-back unanimous MVP in Steph Curry. So he got crucified, he had to make those burners accounts, and he left the Warriors not on a good note. So basically what I'm saying as of right now, Kevin Durant's in a situation with the Brooklyn Nets. When he joined Kyrie, they were in a good situation that they could have won a championship and everything would have been restored. But now you do have a super team by bringing in James Harden, orchestrating that trade, Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge agreeing to buyouts and joining the Brooklyn Nets, leaving them to be overloaded in the Eastern Conference, let alone the whole NBA. So pretty much it's a championship or bust for the Brooklyn Nets with this star power. Now we'll jump a little more deeper into the impact for Kevin Durant's legacy.
What does all this mean for Kevin Durant's legacy? And I can tell you this right now, it's not a good look. Must I remind everyone, Kevin Durant had to join a team with a previous NBA MVP in Golden State, the team that already had the best record statistically in NBA history, that had already won a title without him. He had to join Golden State to go win a title. But after becoming a two-time NBA Finals MVP, we all said, let bygones be bygones. KD was about to go join the Nets, an up-and-coming team with really only Kyrie as its other primary superstar. That was fine. Then James
Kyrie Irving's not a superstar. He's a star player. Let's get this right.
Harden joined the roster, and we said, okay, James Harden, Kyrie, KD, that was fine. But then they added...
Nah. When they added James Harden, people were flaming Kevin Durant on his super team legacy. That was the case when they brought in James Harden. There was a super team by then.
Blake Griffin in his 6 previous All-Star appearances. And now, LaMarcus Aldridge and his 7 previous All-Star appearances. It makes me just ask myself this. KD, how come all the squads you're joining or all the players you're recruiting have to be previous All-Stars for you to get it done? I understand at the end of the day you want to win chips and you want to win as many as you can. But at the point in which in years past you had to join a team with a 2-time MVP to win a ring, and then now you had to recruit a former MVP, along with the likes of Blake Griffin, although he is older, along with the likes of LaMarcus Aldridge, although he is older. I just question, KD, what's it really mean for your legacy? Well, I got to bring in NBA analyst.
Hold up, Jones there. Listen, I don't blame Kevin Durant or LeBron James when they're on the franchise and a player's being bought out and they're a free agent. You want to bring them in. It's not a big deal on that end. Now, the main point is when you're a free agent and you're joining an already established super team. That's what Kevin Durant did. He joined a team that won 73 games, the greatest, pretty much one of the greatest teams of all time. A team that should have won those finals, but I think that's more of a back end, more of a quote-unquote NBA rigged, scripted type thing. I'm not going to jump too much into there, but I'll jump more on a surface level. He joined that team. He should not get the credit as he deserves as for Kevin Durant. Now, he did ball out with the Warriors, but we all knew that was pretty much what he was going to do. Everyone's focusing on Klay and Steph. Kevin Durant is pretty much that ISO player to where people are just shook to where he gets those open looks. Now joining the Brooklyn Nets, he was in a good situation. It was Brooklyn. I mean, they lost in the first round. They had D'Angelo Russell, Jared Dudley, these cats. He was fine joining the Nets with Kyrie Irving to win a championship, but orchestrating that trade for James Harden, you can't really do anything if if you're Kevin Durant. I'm not going to fault him on that for Brooklyn because a trade's a trade. If you can get James Harden on your team for pennies, you make that happen. Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge are hurt. Or not hurt. If they're free agents, they're being bought out and they can join anywhere. Yeah, you want to recruit them. That's not demeaning towards Kevin Durant's legacy now. It's not a good look because he had a super team with Golden State and we wanted him to win a championship somewhere else, being the main guy and not having this big overloaded team. You want competition out there. So, yeah, if he wins a championship this season, it's not going to be a good look. People are not going to throw as much credit to him. So, it is what it is. It's unfortunate, but, I'm not going to knock Kevin Durant on the Nets situation.
My guy, Chris Broussard, CB, my guy, Slick, Rick, and let's get their take on it. So, Slick, I'm going to start with you. How much does this impact, how much does this new super team, impact Kevin Durant's legacy?
Yeah.
On my situation, I have Kevin Durant top 20, top 25 all time in NBA rankings. And the whole list, no, he is not over Steph Curry all time. I don't want to hear that. No, he's not over Kobe Bryant. I do not want to hear that. No, he's not over Hakeem. He's not over, who else we got? He's not over Isaiah Thomas. I don't want to hear that. Kevin Durant's an all-time great, but one thing that lacked him was leading a team to championships. He couldn't get it done with the Thunder. He had to join the Warriors, and I'm not going to credit him for doing that. That was Steph Curry's team. Steph Curry was still the greatest player on that team. And when Steph Curry was out and hurt those seasons, Kevin Durant had a losing record with the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry was the whole foundation for that. Kevin Durant's more been sprinkles on top. Now, he can get your team to the finals. He can get you deep in the playoffs, but we've never seen Kevin Durant take you back home to win championships, being the main guy out there. So that's something we wanted to see with Brooklyn. Now, if they do win the championship, he's going to, quote-unquote, be the main guy, but you do have James Harden right there with him because Harden will go deep in the playoffs, and Harden couldn't get past those Warriors. So if the Warriors were never there, I mean, James Harden pretty much would have 2 finals appearances by himself with the Rockets. Easy. But it's a tricky one. But pretty much what I'm saying is if Kevin Durant wins a championship with the Nets this season or next, with formally the same team, he's not going to be knocked too much into a higher position within the all-time rankings for me.
I'd say it's going to impact his legacy, but I would say it's to the positive, not the negative, in terms of these guys coming to join KD in Brooklyn. The details, Acho, the details are important. First of all, you miscast what happened with Golden State.
Please correct me.
He didn't have to. He didn't have to go to Golden State. Golden State recruited him. We all know about Draymond Green saying, look, we can't get this done anymore without you. KD, could you come help us? And KD said, yeah, you need a finals MVP.
Nah, that's a lie. The Warriors knew they could have defeated the Cleveland Cavaliers coming back next season. They would have and they could have. And that was going to happen with. Now, bringing in Kevin Durant would pretty much nullify being the big bully of not only are we going to beat you, we're going to destroy your team, let alone that, we're going to take over the whole league.
2 times. I'll be there. I'm there. Let's go win some championships. That's what happened there. Now, when it comes to Brooklyn, is he recruiting these guys? Or are these guys looking at KD and saying, you know what, I'd like to win a ring, and I know where I can get one. I can get one if I go to Brooklyn and join up with KD and James and Kyrie. Granted, it's not just KD, but the idea is we want to go someplace that we can win a championship, and KD offers that in Brooklyn. So the biggest part for me, though, at this point, because we don't know what's going to happen when it comes to the postseason, how good the Nets are going to be, whether it truly is a super team. But what this tells me is that while KD's reputation in the public and with the media is moody and sensitive and standoffish and all those things, that the talk around the league does not buy into he didn't get along with Draymond, so that must be KD's problem. He didn't get along with Russ, so that must be KD's problem. This demonstrates to me that players, no matter what their ilk may be, they look forward to playing Kevin Durant. So as far as that is concerned, to me, the only thing that I can judge in terms of changing his legacy is that his legacy is a guy that may not be the greatest teammate or a difficult teammate. That's being put to bed by all these guys running to Brooklyn.
You know, if you're looking at the all-time rankings in the list, Kevin Durant's in the class of all-time rankings around the Charles Barkley area. You know, Kevin Garnett, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor. Now, the people I do have over Kevin Durant, I do have Dirk Nowitzki all-time over than Kevin Durant. That's an easy one right there. I do, and this controversial one, I can care less what you guys think. I do have Kawhi Leonard all-time over Kevin Durant, and as should be. Kawhi Leonard is proven to win a championship on an own franchise being the number one guy, not being the favorites out there in the whole NBA landscape. Now, the Warriors did have Kevin Durant hurt that series, but still, the Warriors were still favorites to win that championship in 2019. I don't care what anyone says, the Warriors were still favorites. The reason the Warriors did not win that championship because you did have Klay Thompson that got hurt game 3, let alone at the end of game 6, he was hurt. But I'm still giving credit to Kawhi Leonard. You did have the Warriors who won 3 out of the last 4 championships. This was their 5th finals, and they were a dynasty still with Steph Curry and the crew. Kawhi Leonard and the crew got it done with. He deserved that finals MVP. He deserved to be, quote-unquote, the best player in the world entering that offseason. That's something Kevin Durant hasn't done with. Kevin Durant joined those Warriors teams, and joining those Warriors teams, he pretty much is hopping back on the bandwagon. I don't want to hear that about Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's not over Dirk Nowitzki all time. No. That's why KD's around top 20, top 25. His 2 rings don't mean as much as whatsoever. This is not being petty. This is not being two-dimensional. This is going more into the context when we're looking into the analytics and data of Kevin Durant all-time rankings. Now, if and when Kevin Durant wins his 3rd championship, which will happen, I'm not saying if it's going to be this year, most likely next season, what I think it would be, but who knows. But when he wins his 3rd championship, you're going to have to put Kevin Durant now in a class of course, hopping over Jerry West. He'll be over Kevin Garnett, of course. Of course, he'll be over Charles Barkley. Of course, he'll be over what am I trying to say? If and when he wins his championship, then, I'll be fine putting him over Kawhi Leonard. That one with Dirk Nowitzki is going to be up in there because these are going to be very unprecedented championships of super teams. And Dirk Nowitzki won a championship, one of the greatest playoff fashion runs of all time. Dirk Nowitzki defeated a super team. So I probably won't put him over Dirk. I don't know, maybe. Now you're talking about David Robinson, Moses Malone, Dr. J, and all that. It's going to be a close one. But who knows? If he wins his 3rd championship, most people, you can put him around maybe top 15, maybe.
I've stayed healthy for a year and now using Whoop because I know when to back off and I know.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you on that, Rick. I don't think, I certainly haven't viewed KD as a bad teammate, even though he had his issues with Draymond in that last year in Golden State. I won't say you had revisionist history on your retelling of how he got to Golden State. I'll just say you had a different perspective. You are right. They wanted him just as much as he wanted them. But the question to Acho's point is, regardless of how he got there, would he have 1 or 2 championships if he had not gone there?
Bingo.
And that's the question. Now,
If Kevin Durant never joined the Warriors, he would not have an NBA championship. Maybe 1. We have to dissect it. If we're looking into the 2017 NBA season, if he didn't join the Warriors, he was either going to stay with the Thunder or leave to the Boston Celtics. If he stayed with the Oklahoma City Thunder, they were not going to win a championship that 2017 NBA season. Not at all whatsoever. They were demoralized after losing a 3-1 series lead. They would have not beaten the Warriors within the 2017 NBA season. They would have not beat them in the playoffs. They were traumatized by that. Even if they did, if they went against the Cleveland Cavaliers in the finals, they were not going to beat a LeBron James-led team. No way, no how. Now, if you're going the next season into 2018, that's going to be in a position to where they still would have not defeated the Golden State Warriors. They would have been locked up. And you did have the Houston Rockets with James Harden out there. That Rockets team would have defeated the Oklahoma City Thunder. And then you go on and so forth. So Kevin Durant, if he did join the Boston Celtics, they were never going to get past the Cleveland Cavaliers, the LeBron James-led team in the East. So Kevin Durant, he knew he was not going to win a championship anywhere. It was the LeBron and the Warriors saga dynasty. Kevin Durant was becoming somewhat irrelevant, and he needed to win a championship. He was about to be 27 years of age. And that's the year when you're in your 7th or 8th, 9th season, you have to win a championship if you're an all-time great, usually in that range. That's why he had to cheat the system and join the Warriors.
here's what it does. It doesn't, getting all these players in Brooklyn, I don't think it demotes KD. All right, he's an all-time great. He's, top 15-ish, somewhere around
No.
there. But it could hinder his ability to move up. So take these scenarios. When KD goes to Brooklyn with Kyrie, let's say that's the team plus Karis LeVert and the other role players that were already there, and they win the next 2 championships.
No, that was never going to happen. If they kept that same team, they would have won. They would have squeaked out 1 championship only. Only 1 if they kept that team.
Now, Kevin Durant is moving up the charts because you're like, He led his own team, and they won these 2 championships. He didn't need the Golden State Warriors just to win a ring.
Well, that's exactly what didn't happen because they made that trade for James Harden. And let alone, if Kevin Durant did win that team with Kyrie and those young cats, and maybe you had one player that got bought out like LaMarcus Aldridge and he joined, if they won one championship all time, I would still not have Kevin Durant in my top 15. He would still be top 20 in that range around there. I would put him over Dr. J. I would put him over Oscar. I would put him over Moses Malone if that were the case. I would put him over David Robinson. You know, him and Dirk would be up in the air, but probably over Dirk. So he'd probably be around top 15 if he did have that team that wasn't a super team. He would be knocking on the door, maybe most likely putting him over Isaiah Thomas. And again, a lot of people disrespect Isaiah Thomas out here, man. Him and the Pistons went back to back in the day and age where they took out the Lakers, they took out the Bulls, they took out the Celtics, they took out all-time great teams, man. And those Pistons did not have any super teams, man. Isaiah Thomas is very underrated, very underrated.
But now with Aldridge and Blake, and they're the secondary parts, it really was adding James Harden. Now if they win the next 2 championships, oh, okay, KD's got 4. That's great. He's still top 15-ish. But it hinders him from moving up because he's got all this talent around him. Now, I've said it myself. Larry Bird had plenty of talent, and they went out and added Bill Walton. Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul.
Yeah, but with Larry Bird, the Celtics had a losing record. I think they had around 20 wins the season before Larry Bird returned or came there. The first season Larry Bird got to the Celtics, they won 60 games plus, and they were contenders already. He won a championship, I believe, his second season, joining the Boston Celtics. That's way different. Larry Bird's won a championship or 2. Then you bring in these other cats out there. That's way different. Kevin Durant has not won a championship with the Thunder, hopped on the Warriors' bandwagon, joined the Nets, and people are still looking at Kevin Durant. He has a lot to prove. He has not won a championship as the number 1 guy, number 1 option. Now you bring in James Harden, you bring all these other cats. So we're never going to see this truly with a traditional championship with Kevin Durant.
Jabbar had plenty of talent, and they went out and added a Bob McAdoo at one point, drafted a James Worthy with the number 1 pick. So everybody, this is not the first time teams have been stacked. Even that Miami Heat team that won a championship in 2012, they went out and added Ray Allen and then won another championship. So,
well, as they should be.
This is not the first time, but what also could be hindering KD is his sitting out. And now people are talking about James Harden as an MVP. You've heard Charles Barkley and others say he might be, whether you agree or not, that he might be the best player in the world. Now Harden to me is the engine. And if this is going to work, it is all because of James Harden's playmaking abilities and ability to run the point guard and keep everybody happy. So now we're questioning, is it KD's team or is it Harden's team?
And that's a good point. Because if you remember the 2018 NBA season, when Kevin Durant was on the Warriors, a lot of two-dimensional thinkers had KD as the best player in the world. He was not. I don't want to hear it. LeBron James was the greatest player in the world. At 2, it was Steph Curry still. Even though Steph and KD were teammates, Steph Curry was the greater and better teammate, the better player in the world. I don't want to hear it about Kevin Durant's sprinkles on top, about his shooting performances and his how many points he was averaging out there. Steph Curry was the engine foundation of the team. When Curry was hurt, KD had a losing record with the Warriors. So I don't want to hear about this mumble jumble about how KD can just overpass Steph Curry like that. Nah. LeBron was number 1. Curry was still number 2 in that. Then at 3 and 4, you did have Kevin Durant around there with James Harden. Then at 5, you have Giannis, and so on and so forth. Harden and Kevin Durant have always been neck and neck. They've always been pretty much neck and neck in the not all-time rankings, in the NBA best player in the world rankings. They've been pretty much neck and neck. Bringing in James Harden with Kevin Durant to the Brooklyn Nets has brought an opportunity to where Harden has led his team far into the playoffs, and he's more of an impact player than as Kevin Durant for wins. Kevin Durant can get you wins, but he needs that second go-to guy. So this is an opportunity to where James Harden could potentially win a Finals MVP over Kevin Durant. Now, knowing the media and how legacies go, they'll most likely give it to Kevin Durant somehow, some way. But Harden is in a situation where he could potentially win MVP this season. That's not a good look for Kevin Durant. And I've always stated Kevin Durant is a beta. He is not an alpha. Now, he does have alpha skills on the basketball court, but his demeanor, his leadership, his persona is not alpha. He's a beta.
Whether they win or not, now that'll play out in the playoffs, but this could hinder KD's chance to move up the charts.
Fellas, I look at it like this. Kevin Durant is like that hospital that only admits the healthiest of patients, and then it boasts about its health care provided. See, Kevin Durant is joining a Warriors team that was already the best team in the history of the National Basketball Association. But then we all boast about his accolades because he was a...
Listen. Listen, you already know my stance on this about the 2016 finals, those last 3 games. They pretty much flipped the script. And this is not me being all conspiracy. I watched those games. Those Warriors should have waxed the Cavaliers even without Draymond Green in Game 5. They flipped the switch, the Warriors in a bad way. Their demeanor went down very quick. They were not the same explosive, swaggy team. They act like they didn't care. I mean, you can look at their body language, especially with Steph Curry and the crew, making these behind-the-back passes out of bounds, very careless and nonchalant. Those Warriors teams were debated to be the greatest team of all time against the 1996 Chicago Bulls. Now, were they or were they not? That's a different conversation for another day. But those Warriors were a top 5 team of all time. Even though they did lose in the finals, they were still an all-time. At that time, they were still a top 5 all-time team in NBA history. I don't care if they did not win the championship, they still were.
Time NBA MVP. Must I remind you, Slick Rick, as I see your subtle hand gestures, the Nets currently have the best record in the NBA since Kevin Durant has been out at 15-3. So if my math and deductions are right,
Chase My Home makes it surprisingly simple to see ways you can own your home sooner.
My name is Raymond Daniels. I'm the current Bellator kickboxing world champion and MMA fighter. So today, I'm going to highlight how I stay.
KD joined the best team in the history of the NBA by record, 73-9. And then he's now on a team that actually is currently the best in the NBA without him. To CB's point, it doesn't diminish KD, but it does make you have to ask yourself, do I need to reclassify where I am?
Bingo. Thank you. You have to reclassify Kevin Durant as a second option in the NBA, a number 2 guy. He's not a number 1. He is a beta. But he's one of the greatest betas of all time in NBA history. He's not a number 1 option to win championships. He can be a number 1 option, take you deep far in the playoffs, and even get you a finals appearance. But he's not a number 1 guy, and that's such to win championships. Now, we pretty much will never know because he now has James Harden on his team. So that's not going to get it done with anymore about him being a number 1 true guy to do that. Now, let's just say if there was an injury on Kyrie Irving and or James Harden, or maybe Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge get hurt as well. And if he leads them to a championship, then yeah, I'll give him credit. I'll give him that credit being the number 1 guy. But he's very borderline a bubble player of potentially being that number 1 guy that can win you a championship. But who knows, that's to be determined. Who knows?
Putting KD, because if the Nets are literally the best team in the NBA without KD, and the Warriors were already the best team in the NBA history without KD, then I just wonder, where exactly should I put KD? Because as I look at it right now, I don't necessarily think he belongs where we currently have him as such an impactful superstar if the Nets are still just as good without him. Somebody.
Thank you. Kevin Durant is an impact player, but he's not to a degree of a LeBron James, James Harden. You could throw Giannis Antetokounmpo, not a Steph Curry type. Nah.
Got to make that make sense.
And listen, Steph Curry is not in the playoffs right now. He has no go-to guy with him. Klay Thompson's been out for 2 seasons in a row. Management is not giving Curry anything to work with.
Sense.
Let me make it make sense. This is the mistake that both of you are making. You keep judging Kevin Durant and talking about his legacy, about where things are in the regular season, whether it's what the Golden State Warriors did in the regular season or what the Brooklyn Nets are doing in the regular season. That's not where legacies are made. Giannis Antetokounmpo, arguably, has been the best player, or at least the MVP vote says, has been the best player, the most valuable player the last 2 years. And yet we don't put him
No, we're not going to compare that, Mr. Booker. No.
Lake, and it comes to LA, the names are bigger than the games at this point. If Kevin Durant delivers for the Brooklyn Nets in the postseason, the way he delivered for the Golden State Warriors, who, let's not forget, top regular season record, and then ultimately we're down 3-1 to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that Kevin Durant in Oklahoma City. So the regular season performance is not a reflection of who they are. Or
You know, I still fully expect Kevin Durant to be in the years of shaming. Ever since joining the Warriors and pretty much cheating the system with the NBA is not going to allow, and when I say the NBA, I'm not saying two-dimensionally. I'll go a little more deeper, but maybe not. But the NBA is not going to allow Kevin Durant to be on these winning years once again. He had his winning years with the Golden State Warriors. That's why within his legacy now, he got hurt. He missed a season. He lost the finals with the Warriors. He tore his Achilles. He was out for a season. I fully expect a flame out for the Brooklyn Nets, most likely in the NBA Finals against the LA Lakers. This needs to be one of the last flame outs and knocks on Kevin Durant's legacy before he starts to win with the Nets. I'm in the position to where I expect the Nets to win next season in 2022 to fill in those gaps for the rosters that makes sense. And Spencer Dinwiddie to get healthy and get back on the franchise and the team. I fully expect the Lakers as of right now to win that championship. A flame out for the big super team of the Nets and Kevin Durant's legacy. And I fully expect them 2022 to bounce back. That's not an objective standard. That's just me seeing things big picture as it is.
potentially could be in the postseason. That's where Kevin Durant delivered big time for the Golden State Warriors and can still add to his legacy if he does the same for these Brooklyn Nets.
All right. I'm going to leave it on there. Kevin Durant for me is top 20, top 25 of all time. I don't want to hear Kevin Durant's top 15 or near top 10. He's not over most of these players, these historic players who's won championships. And you guys are being disrespectful for Bill Russell all time in the rankings. Same thing with Isaiah Thomas. No. KD right now is around top 20, top 25. If he wins this championship, it's not going to impact me too much on the list unless there's injuries involved within his team. Maybe he has just all-time performances, and who knows about that. But this is not a good look for KD having a super team to justify him as an all-time great. He is an all-time great. Don't get me wrong, he is. But I pertain him more of as a beta than an alpha, and he's not a true impact player for wins. Now, he's a sprinkle on top. He'll get you a finals or so, being the number one guy. But, we've seen with his demeanor, with his choices, what he believes in himself by joining the Warriors, by having burner accounts, by orchestrating that James Harden trade, which I can't knock him too much. I can't knock him too much on that, but we'll leave it on that.